everyone, this is Amanda Borchel-Dan.
And I'm Jessica Steinberg,
your host for Times Will Tell,
a weekly podcast from the Times of Israel. Hey, Times Will Tell listeners, it's Jessica Steinberg, and you hear this noise? That's the sound made by the blenders making Paletas, handmade natural popsicles created by Nomi Zysblat, a Tel Aviv dwelling and working chef who started making the Mexican version of these artikim. Artikim is the Hebrew word for the ever-present popsicles available at every corner store that she makes with fresh seasonal fruit in all kinds of combinations. We'll hear more about Nomi's story in a moment, right after a quick break. Hello, Nomi Zysblat. How are you?
Hi. Good. How are you?
Good. It is very, very good to have you here. Nomi and I are smiling at each other over our Zoom screens because I first met her when she was about to launch Paletas. I think it's about a decade ago, but actually you'll tell me, Nomi, how long ago is it?
Yeah, a little more than a decade ago. Yeah, we started, I think, officially March of 2012.
Okay. All right. That would make sense. So when she first told me about them, I thought, oh, this is something I'm going to really want to be eating all the time. And at first, I live in Jerusalem. She's in Tel Aviv. I had to import them to Jerusalem. I would import boxes of them because I love the fresh flavors, the coconut, the banana and dates, Vietnamese coffee, malabi and pistachio, chalva. I mean, these are like the traditional Paletas flavors that we've become accustomed to here. Slowly but surely, Paletas really went countrywide. Freezers of them in local pizza stores and the local makolet, the corner grocery store, not just in health food stores and higher end spots, and not just in Tel Aviv. So before I let Nomi speak, I'm going to say one more thing, and that is there are special seasonal flavors as well, like the Sufganyeta for Chanukah.
Yes.
Right? Jelly donut popsicles, which are, wait for it, listeners, made from jelly donut-flavored milk and filled with homemade fruit jam. Sometimes raspberry, sometimes strawberry. Nomi, is that correct?
Mostly strawberry. Yeah.
Okay.
That's what most people like. But we're thinking of doing more flavors this year, so we'll see.
Oh, okay. We can talk more about that. What did your kids think of those, the Sufganyeta? Nomi has 2 small kids. Yeah?
Yeah, they like them. They go for color more than flavor, as do most kids. So like our June version of the Pride Paletas, which has all the colors of the rainbow, is more of their go-to. But they each have their own favorite surprising flavor as well. So
right. And since it's like you have this ready-made test tasting group in your home ready to try out any flavor that you decide to create, right?
Yeah. I mean, I use their kindergartens, their schools, I
That's
basically bombard people with flavors all the time. Yeah.
So let's step back a second and tell everyone a little bit about you so that we can dive into Paletas. You are a chef and a musician. Let's just say that because I think that comes up a lot. A little bit of a frustrated musician at the moment, but you lived for years in New York and you discovered Paletas, which are really originally a Mexican concept, in a bodega, in a corner grocery.
That's right. Yeah. I had $20 bill in my pocket and I was waiting for a friend. It was a very odd day. I came to help her get divorced. I had to come. I had to come and say like, hi, yeah, that's who she is. It was like way in the top of, I don't know, Spanish Harlem. And I had an hour to kill. Very odd day. And I happened to get to this main street, which it looked like a huge parade, a Latin parade. Like it was a Sunday. It was great, like a sunny day during the winter, kind of like surprising kind of day. And there was so much exciting food going on. I looked in my pocket. I had $20 and everything was like $1, $2, $3. I said, okay, I'm using these $20 and I'm going to taste everything. And one of the things I happened upon was this bodega with a huge freezer filled with colorful popsicles, which I had yet to find in New York because I was missing them for so long, being used to having popsicles in Israel.
Popsicles, let's just say, those popsicles are generally pretty artificial.
Right, but they are exciting. As a kid, you've got a lot of flavors and different combinations and little candies inside and stuff like that. So I was excited, the kid in me was excited to see all these colorful popsicles. And then the chef in me, because at the time I was working at a restaurant, French Caribbean restaurant in Brooklyn, I saw these flavors that were just like, what? That's a popsicle? Like mango with chili and like, what was it? Goat's milk, and all this, just really interesting things that I just decided to start tasting.
Amazing.
And it blew my mind. And I immediately brought it the next day to my chef at the Brooklyn restaurant and said, we have to do something with this for our menu, because we had really heavy desserts. And on hot days, nobody really wanted to order dessert. And so that's how I started playing around with the idea.
But then you went to Mexico, correct?
Yeah. And so this whole time, I was always thinking about coming back to Israel. I had studied food as much as I could till my money ran out. And then I was working at restaurants. And I knew I wanted to start something. I was always sort of entrepreneur-y. Even as a kid, I always tried new ideas. And I thought I'd, eventually maybe open a cafe or a restaurant. But, me being also a little bit more feet on the ground, I thought maybe I'd try something smaller and a little more safe before I went into the big aspects of business.
Yes, which are tough, which you've done, of course, but we'll get into that in a second. You do have a business.
Yeah, but I thought I'd just, put my feet a little, my toes in the water kind of thing and get a sense of the business. And the more I thought about the idea of a simple popsicle for Israel, the more I thought it was a good idea and that it could be potential for kids, for adults, for teenagers. Like there's so many ways to go with it, also healthy, but also fun. And the niche of nature and natural food was getting bigger and bigger. It wouldn't be a bad thing to try. And then I would, do the full thing. I would go to Mexico, get the actual real like schwung and atmosphere concept of how a paleta is made. And so that's what I did. For about a month and a half, I went from place to place and I spoke to everyone I could. A lot of people were very happy to show me. Some were less happy to show me. I went around the States a little bit into Paletas businesses that existed in areas that had a lot of Mexicans. And I basically mostly got just, the feel of it because it's not rocket science. It's not something super, super hard. It's more of the idea and concept.
So without giving away your trade secrets, what are some of the things that really, there's, of course, the very fresh fruit flavors. There's the combinations. Is there something that I'm not hitting upon that really is what marks a paleta? Are there certain concepts that you need to have in a paleta, certain kinds of ingredients?
Well, yeah. I think in Mexico, the classic is to divide all the paletas into two groups. There's the paletas de agua, which is the water-based or fruit-based, we call them, and the paleta de crema, which is cream-based. So all the like more ice creamy, mefanek, like the fun ones.
Right, the treat ones.
The treats, yeah. And every area in Mexico has different ones. And of course, the base of the paleteria, just like I sort of explain it to people, just like a falafelia in Israel, is that it's, father to son or mother to daughter, mostly men at that point that were working in the paletas business. And they each have their own style and the fruit that they like. But it's basically whatever's in the market, that's what goes into the paletas.
Whatever's in season.
Yeah. So, but there, it wasn't a concept of educating people for, natural food. It was what existed then. And so there, they would also add food coloring. So like, there would be a safta, like, a nona, like squeezing tiny little limes, like millions of tiny little limes into a bucket for hours. And then the guy would come and put in 2 tablespoons of green food coloring. And I'd be like, no, why?
Why would you
do that? He said, come on, lime is green. Green. So right. I learned, different things that they were doing also just naturally. And it was really sweet. And it was really homemade and a family business, small family businesses.
But then you came back here.
And then I came back and I kept that same concept of dividing them into fruity and creamy. But at the beginning, it was very local, very seasonal, and very posh, I would say. Like I thought I was coming from the chef in Brooklyn. So I wouldn't dare have just a strawberry popsicle. It was strawberry with balsamic vinegar.
Yes.
Or, watermelon with basil, and a lot of stranger flavors. But working the farmers markets at the beginning, I sensed what people wanted and what got them excited. And I basically understood that most people want to buy a popsicle from a cart that has strawberry with balsamic vinegar, but they won't choose that one, right?
They'll pick the regular strawberry.
Yeah, or something that sounds easier on the palate, like, I don't know, pears and wine. That sounds easier, right? So they'd go for something a little, interesting but safe.
Yes. And I remember when I would purchase them and my family they'd be like, exactly, strawberries and balsamic vinegar, forget about it. Do you have something a little more normal, a little more straightforward?
Yeah. So it took a while. And also in the end, you see when most of when you have a lot of mothers buying for kids, there are certain flavors you need to have all
the time.
Year.
Yeah.
So then the seasonal sort of, okay, so you have your special seasonal flavors, but you have your basics that are all year round. So we also freeze our fruit so that we have fruit all year round. We have it. Yeah.
So it's sort of like tomatoes and cucumbers. It's like Israelis have to have their tomatoes and cucumbers, even if they're only getting kale for 6 weeks of the year or something like that. So you've touched on something that I wanted to ask you about, which is that Israelis, of course, have for a long time, I'm going to say had this aversion to cold things during the winter months, right? Like this was a country where you could not find popsicles or ice cream during the winter, which is why people would buy Crembos.
Right.
Listeners who are not familiar with those are the chocolate-covered marshmallows with a cookie bottom. Now there's all these like chef artisanal versions of them. Maybe there's going to be a Paletas version of it, or maybe there has been. I don't know. But what's been happening with Paletas in the winter over the last, dozen years that you've been in business?
Yeah. So the first few years, I just took off. The first few years, it was just like, you know what? December, January, I'm in India or whatever.
Hilarious. That's great.
Now we have, a factory and workers, and we can't just take off. But we do all take our yearly vacation in January, first of all. But and sales do go down, and we, do a lot of more research and preparation for the next summer. But we do still sell a lot of the creamy ones because ice cream is not the same as, a strawberry popsicle. And we go more wild with there were winters where we had like sort of dipping. We do like fondue kind of popsicles where we'd give a set with, dipping sauces and toppings. And we do our tiramisu in the winter, which we don't have time to do in the summer because it's so time consuming and also very sensitive to be shipping around. There's things you can do in the winter that you can't in the summer, especially with very soft, sensitive ingredients, and more time to have fun. So our people who are excited about paletas can still enjoy them also in the winter.
Right. And people, I think, have also learned that you can have something cold in the winter and it's okay.
Yeah. Now that in general, people have, cooling systems and heating systems, they can sit in their homes and enjoy whatever food all year round.
We're going to take a quick break. When we're back, Nomi Zysblat of Paletas will tell us a little bit more about what it's like to be an unexpected entrepreneur and what it means for her in her workday and life. you are from parents who came from a colder climate. Your parents are from Vancouver originally, and which might be why also you didn't have as much of an issue with cold things in the winter. But I'm also going to touch on the fact that it's sort of interesting. So I met you because we had a mutual friend, and you were from the French Hill neighborhood of Jerusalem. You grew up there, which is a neighborhood that has this enclave, this community of English speakers, people who came from English-speaking countries. And it's funny, when I was thinking about it, it's a little bit of an incubator for entrepreneurs, the community that you came from, of parents who came from English-speaking countries. I'm going to mention a famous one, Sha'anan Street of Doughnut-flavored. She's a well-known rapper. We've had him here at the Times Will Tell. I'm thinking of a pair of brothers, Ellie and Carmi Wortman. One created tech companies. The other is a concert promoter. There's a few others. And of course, there is you. There is Nomi Zysblat, the creator of Paletas, which is a pretty well-known brand in Israel. And I'm wondering, you said you wanted to get your feet wet with this small company, but now you've got this factory and this company. Tell us a little bit about the size of it.
Well, it started out, from my small apartment in Tel Aviv, moving to a small factory down the street, actually from where we currently are, that carried us for about 4 years until it was too small already. And the ministry of the guy from the health industry was like, you know what? You need to expand. This is too small. I can't do this anymore. And so we just moved. We really liked the street we're on in Tel Aviv. It started out as a small business of mine with my friends. We were all coming on our bicycles from home, and it wasn't like we didn't plan for this to be a huge factory. Otherwise, we would have started in advance out of the city. But we slowly took over little pieces of the street in southern Tel Aviv where we are now. So our office is in one building, and then we have a storage area across the street, and then the factory is now 2 buildings down from where we were. It's still not huge. This is not a huge company. It's really a small, 150 meter factory, which is big enough for us, with a small, freezer room. And it's still, we do our own shipping and our own marketing. It's all one-stop shop. We don't pull from any other independent providers. So it's a lot of work, and in the summer, it's a lot of people, and in the winter, it's less. So we just go up and down as needed. In the heat of the summer, we've got 3 drivers that ship all over the country. And in the factory itself, we've got, 7 workers full time. It's pretty crazy, but it really varies. And we make also, it depends on the day and on the time of year, but we can, but we can manage to make, a couple, even almost 100,000 paletas a month on a very, very busy month.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot of paletas.
Yeah. It's a lot of paletas. Yeah.
It takes a lot to take an idea that you had at a street fair in New York and turn it into this profitable working venture. Is it what you anticipated?
It's pretty wild. At the beginning, I was just going, I was just really working hard and trying to make it work and explaining it a lot and doing a lot of, PR and marketing for this small little idea. The original passion of mine is and still remains the flavors and the creation. And so eventually, and I listened to it. I listened to what I was sort of in the zone at the time, and I was really concentrated. And I felt that whatever the Paletas wanted to do is where I went with them, not only flavor wise, but also idea wise and progressing into the company that it became. Eventually, just like any business, and I speak to a lot of people in the food business, but also in general, a business is a business, and you start concentrating on the things that you don't want to really deal with, from workers to taxes to, kosher, everything is down to paperwork and hard, hard work, and it doesn't matter if you're selling a really happy popsicle or a really boring, I don't know, some kind of machine.
SIM card.
A SIM card or a washing machine. It's still a business. And in Israel, business is hard. It really is. And we're at the point right now where we have to grow even more. Because when you're a small business and you're very focused and you're doing a lot of people, very few people are doing a lot of things, it's somehow manageable. When you're a medium-sized business, it's very hard. The work versus profit versus in the end, the bottom line at the end of the year is difficult. And so on one hand, it's like crazy that people know this and that I go places all over the country and people actually know what Paletas is. I'm still surprised that people know what Paletas, and I'm really happy that I've created something that does make people happy and that I think is a good product. I really believe in the product. I think it's the best popsicle that exists at the moment in the market. There are several competitors that have come into the market in the last few years, and all we can do is try to make sure we're better, because there's different ideas, there's all sorts of options. And so it makes us stay, as good as we can. We also haven't raised prices in 10 years, which is pretty crazy. And people are surprised by it. Like we were just at Indie Negev, which is a big festival.
Right.
A music festival that I started selling at 9 years ago. And there's crowds that, still know us from then. And, we sell more and more and more. And people said, it's the same price I paid 9 years ago,
right.
But on the other hand, there's so much competition and, not only in the natural popsicle business, but in all the popsicles and ice creams and everything that we can't really afford to raise prices. We only have to just do better in buying and, in our bulk and in our work and making more popsicles more efficient. But I'm happy to be able to tell people that we're making the best popsicle at the same price still.
And I want to switch gears a little bit and go back to a little bit of where you came from and your parents coming from Vancouver, from Canada, being part of this, what we call in Israel, the Anglo community, or growing up in it. You're certainly not in that now. You're living a very different life, right? For sure. But I noticed something about a month ago, 3 weeks ago, you posted a picture on social media about doing Halloween with your kids, and something like 500 families were participating in Halloween.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about it because we're heading towards Thanksgiving this week. And when this podcast airs, and I know you're Canadian, so Thanksgiving isn't necessarily what you do. But given that you're this Israeli with this Israeli company and living this Tel Aviv life, and marking Halloween, was curious to hear a little bit about it, even though we're a few weeks after. When did you start participating in it?
It's crazy. Tel Aviv has become totally, I don't know if it's the amount of people that are moving to Berlin and to the States and coming back from New York. I mean, I have just in the gun of my younger son, we have, 4 or 5 couples that have returned from New York, just like I did 10 years ago. So they are now returning with kids. There's really a feeling of, everyone knows everything and the kids are really excited. And now with all the internet and everything, there's so much excitement around these holidays that are, maybe us Jewish people consider them Christian, but for the kids here, it's just really cool, fun,
opportunity to dress up.
American or,
right.
Yeah. Like my kids are all excited about Christmas already. I don't know. We're not going to do anything, but the fact that they know about it from TV and everything, it's become just a fun thing to do. And I think Halloween, it's just another Purim, and everyone in Tel Aviv last year, it started a little bit. And now this year it just blew up. There's these WhatsApp groups that you can connect to and you add your home to it. And basically we had 500 homes on a virtual map that you could click on and see. Some of them would even say if they're gluten-free or if they're not too scary for kids that are like sensitive. Like there was all these details about the houses and what you could find there.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Did you hand out paletas?
I didn't hand out, for years I tried to push my pumpkin paleta on the Israelis and it wasn't a very big success. Israelis do not do pumpkin. They're like, that's what I eat on couscous. Why should I eat a pumpkin on a stick? So yeah, we handed out gummy eyes.
Yeah,
that's what we handed out.
That's kind of creepy and appropriate for Halloween in Tel Aviv or anywhere really, I would imagine. Okay, so as we finish this up, any special flavors that you're working on that we should know about for the coming months, holiday related, that we can perhaps dream about?
Well, Chanukah is coming up, so hopefully we're going to do Sufganyetas again this year.
Excellent.
And that's actually, a New York-based idea. I took that inspiration from Milk Bar in New York,
yes,
she does the cornflake milk. So I was like, okay, if cornflake can be a milk, then so can a Sufganyeta. Actually, we're open to ideas of fillings if anyone wants to, add a request other than dulce de leche, which we hear a lot. Yeah, and a lot of different. We're working on toppings and different dips and stuff like that, and different sizes. We're working on a mini, tiny little Paletas box for supermarkets soon. So we'll see when that comes out.
Okay, we will wait for that. By the way, here's my idea: a natural crembo Paletas. I mean, crembos, I don't love them personally. They're very artificial tasting, but I don't know. Maybe there's something there for the kind of person who would like a crembo in a natural version that is popsicle related. You can just say, Jessica, forget about it. It's fine.
No, well, it needs to have a cookie inside. We'll think about it. We'll definitely think about it.
All right. It's just just the thought I'm having. Nomi Zysblat of Paletas, it has been lovely chatting with you. We thank you for being on The Times Will Tell.
It's great as always. Thank you for having me.
Thanks so much to Nomi Zysblat of Paletas for being with us today. Have a good listen, and we'll be back tomorrow with another daily briefing. Be well.
Thanks so much for listening to Times Will Tell from the Times of Israel, and thanks to our producer, Gilad Brownstein.
Please subscribe wherever you find your podcasts and check out our daily briefing news show every Sunday through Thursday.
Like what you hear? Consider rating us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify to spread the word.
Until next week.
Shalom.